So today I'm going to go back to yes, it's to be expected, the usual genre, and it couldn't get more stereotypical than this, right? Like literally, that's just the genres that are listed. The yeah, the primary one, and then just movie. So, and this is the most stereotypical name as well. I mean, it's not like before before they were like they were Nightmare, or yeah, the most oddly named I guess would be Cello, I guess, but the others are fairly stereotypical, I guess. They either begin with something with death, or so yeah, not quite the most original either. This certainly isn't. So that's a certainty. This is called Tales of Terror, Haunted Apartment. Yeah, because there's a lot of those, especially in Hollywood, the kind where teenagers go and first have a party, and then it turns, those kinds. Yeah. Well, this is supposed to be a an Eastern film anyway, so I'm expecting hmm, what am I expecting? Hmm, talking dolls, maybe. I don't know. Actually, is that like a staple? Not sure. Oh, maybe there's a ghostly child. I mean, that's possible. Not usually resting in a part. Well, apart from Dark Water, yeah, that's she was visiting there, but not quite there, but above, yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's a very plain name, though, isn't it? More than one word at least. Before usually, Nightmare. Oh, what a title! Instead, just Tales of Terror, and then colon, as if it's like one in a series, and you can have Tales of Terror in the toilet. Oh, that's terrifying. Now, too terrifying. Yeah. So, I mean, I had to make a choice between either a rom-com or this. I don't know. I just wasn't very in the mood for a rom-com. I don't know how mood works. To be fair, yeah, these days this is all. It's not that I don't always. I like based on mood. I don't. When I watch war films or movies set in prisons, that's not because I'm in that mood. That is truly almost pretty much random then. But this, yeah, I suppose one might say that I am more in the mood for horror than much else. But sometimes I do select truly randomly. Sometimes. But this, sure enough, this isn't, I guess you could say, random. I mean, in terms of what title I select, it is kind of random. I don't make any special effort to pre-screen beforehand or anything, or even read the synopsis. I literally haven't read anything beyond the title. So anyway, yeah, I'm going to begin this now. And by the way, the prize for the most boring logo goes to King Records. Like, I mean, you cannot get more boring than that. It's just flashing the individual letters, like seriously, and then just at least they bothered having different colors at the end. But what's the point? I mean, in comparison to all the logo transformations and mini movies I watched in the past, this is almost certainly the most boring. Even the one that came after it was more interesting. It's very short anyway, they tend to be, but that's in comparison still interesting. And that is one strange intro there. Like, yeah, of all the intros I've watched, maybe what's the point there? Also, it seems like there's some Japanese text that this source I'm watching hasn't translated annoyingly, so I don't know if it's saying like 10 years later or something. Must be something along those lines. It ends with an ellipse, but annoying when they don't translate. Like a pet peeve, I guess you could say. This really follows the Dark Quarter formula, doesn't it? So, you know, at the beginning they try to get an apartment as well, and the difference is that she was the daughter was much younger. So she is older here. And what do you know? There is a ghostly child. It's almost like Japanese horror bingo, isn't it? It's so predictable. It's almost ridiculous, and not too much, but you know, at least they changed, you know, the parents' gender, I guess, and the age of the child. But other than that, and um, this came first. I'm not entirely sure. I cannot know quite easily. So anyway, one of them possibly copied the other. I don't know what was involved. We'll see. The owner is certainly much more enthusiastic, though. Too much for his breathing problems, it seems. Not sure if like a ghost is stuck in his throat or something. And yeah, the residents are definitely too enthusiastic. Like, you know, I barely even see my neighbors, let alone greet me while I'm driving and nearly get hit in the process. Like, what? Yeah, strange stuff. In terms of why they freaked out over I was a bit confused because I knew it meant love, right? Which it does, but apparently it might have another meaning of grief, sorrow, sadness, lamentation, pity, and sympathy, possibly. So I'm guessing that's why they freaked out at first. I'm not sure, and then they figured out it's her name after all. I mean, not just but I on its own. They thought, yeah, it just has a double meaning. I'm assuming. I'm not sure if it does. I don't know why they didn't assume that it meant love in the first place. Not so. Maybe that's why just to show. I'm assuming they're so fickle. You know, they go from being so enthusiastic and manic, really, to freaking out. Huh? Um, is it just me, or do those children have a bit of grey mixed in with their hair? It's strange. You know, seeing children with such hair, usually people are aged 40 or so who have sort of, you know, a bit of white, not totally white hair, but just a bit, uh, yeah, I guess it's sort of symbolic. Okay. Uh, Even their parents don't seem to have, well, the father is a bit bald, so I guess, yeah. But, and of course he's playing solitaire. That's what anyone who just lost their wives and thus are drinking themselves to death and relocating does, of course, solitaire. The banisher of all annoyances. Personally, I find it an annoyance in itself, but yeah, that's just me. I don't see the point of card games at all in any card games, but yeah, hmm, well, that's that, guess. And yeah, that's definitely one of the strangest presumable personas I've ever seen. You know, I mean, you know, usually they sleepwalk, not you know sleep shove or something. It's yeah. Yeah, and the problem is that they take these things a bit too far. That sometimes um, they think that if horror goes a bit too far, it becomes a bit comedic. Like this very stereotypically that thing where When possessions are involved as well, it's a fine line between comedy and horror, I suppose. Sometimes they do go too far, which I thought, they did in the scene where, after she's choked, it's a bit, yeah. But yeah, that apartment must have aged those children a lot, huh? And yeah, I suppose, now we know exactly why I was a terrifying name for those residents. And also, I suppose, why they were so elated that new residents were moving in. It makes sense, yes, by half an hour in, yeah. The mythology behind this, I suppose, isn't too bad. It's quite similar to most others as well, yeah, in terms of hauntings and such like that. I suppose it's to be expected. It's just about a haunting, but for some reason it's always females that haunt these places. Um, yeah, I think that in Dark Water it also. To be fair, I don't think it had much of a gender. Just was was some sort of ghost. But yeah, it's kind of like Ghibli. Ghibli instead has females in as protagonists, but these are sort of, well, these are antagonists, I suppose. So Ghibli has females as protagonists, and movies, Japanese horror movies have them as antagonists for some reason. Huh. Like the anti-Ghibli. Yeah, those children definitely look like life has been sucked out of them. What kind of children just sit on a couple of swings without even swinging, just holding hands like they're praying? As much as atmosphere goes, I guess that sort of sets up an atmosphere. Yeah? That mm, I don't know, just being possessed and saying "Don't say my name again" was a bit cheesy, I suppose. That's when horror movies go a bit too far in terms of from they transition from horror to comedy in this sense, I suppose. So I wonder whether they're going to also have Suspiria elements. It seems like, they might do. There's clearly different sort of elements happening at night, but the nights, yeah, there was someone whispering. It seems. In the other night for the other family, there was that weird parasomnia like thing, but for her, for the this protagonist, there was someone whispering, and that's reminiscent of Suspiria. Literally, that's what Suspiro means in Italian, Latin, more like. Yeah. Um. So yeah, I've never seen it any other horror film. So I wonder whether might have been influenced or such. By the way, the sound effects here in the background, I guess could be said to be effective. They're quite minimalist as well. But yeah, they sort of simulate the wind. It seems. Like the wind is talking as such, and they make it sound creepy. Obviously, the wind doesn't normally sound creepy, but this does. When it comes to the ghostly figures, though, yeah, I don't know. Most Japanese horror films do not tend to make them sort of transform and such. They just remain as ghostly children, sort of in the sense. Though in this movie, they seem to transform into more monstrous beings, at least at the very last moment. So I suppose that's a bit of difference there. Um, what's interesting is that the curse seems to function on in another dimension in a way. So like at first the lights went off, and then it seemed like it only took a second, implied by the clock in her hand. Yeah, it only took a second for everything to happen. So time passed at a different rate. Sort of like the theory of relativity claims. So it was a different space or something. So I guess that's another difference from most horror films. Most that's not necessarily true. Most things happen in the same dimension. I suppose this is yeah this I suppose that's not entirely stereotypical. At least not from the movies I've watched so far. Not sure though why they always seem to leave something that looks like sugar. Like I don't know if they're going to find out why in the last 40 minutes, but it's strange. I mean, how do ghosts leave sugar behind? Are they made of sugar? Are they like made of pure energy or something? Biologically speaking. I mean, ghosts are supposed to be beyond the physical, but who knows? Maybe that's another theory. Yeah, well, I guess that's another unique difference between this and other Japanese horror films, or even any other horror films, I suppose. Um, Yeah, I'm not sure it makes much sense currently, but it's a difference, I suppose. So, seems like the, the nightmares change for every person, right? Hmm. So that makes it similar to Mayoga, the anime. Yeah, sort of similar. It was set in an apartment, but the apparitions are subjective. I like how it's showing a bit of every household. Not many movies do that. Usually focus on just one. It's gonna make it solve an ensemble drama. Yeah. Now this is turning out to be better than its was title. So yeah, it's turning out to be more interesting than expected. And yeah, uh, traffic is bad at the worst of times, but huh, I never thought it would be this bad. It wasn't real life. They, they call it curfew, except most curfews do not result in death if it's in a very oppressive country and such. But yeah, this is one hell of a curfew. And that is also why people shouldn't rely on heeled shoes really. What's just the point of it? Okay, that's kind of weird because just gonna I think a bit uh positively of this movie. It just goes a bit too far. This is the problem with. I mean, it is sort of experimental in ways. So it has many venues, but you know, just I, I guess yeah. You can show people who have no money to eat, but heck, that was disgusting. I mean, earlier they were seemingly eating pills, which makes no sense. I thought they were committing suicide, but apparently not. I don't know if they met the same couple. And really though, it's just, I mean, I'm not sure what kind of commentary this is intended, but I mean, I mean, all the apartments are all cursed, so surely they should, they seemingly do feel like they're connected. Otherwise, they were worried about those who were late, for example, but they cannot then share their food with those who have none. I mean, it makes no sense. This is how it goes a bit too far, yeah. But this is sorry, and you just have movies about people who have nothing to eat. They'd be more of a social commentary than a horror film. I suppose, yeah. They must have thought, oh yeah, it's eat blood and like that makes it a horror film. It's really just disgusting and unnecessary vampires, it's just not such a sort of normal. But this is the only thing. So the fact that literally just the scene previously, all the people there from all the apartments were seen, to be, um, they seem to be happy about, anxious about, yeah, and about someone else. So I mean, they seem to care about someone else's welfare, and yet they don't care about these people well, who have no money, uh, and they seem to know they have no money, so it's not like they simply don't know, it's playing at the beginning. So I don't know. That's inconsistent. It's a bit weird, and I cannot think of any reason why um, but he, he's so called, kind of useless now calling her protagonist because, as I say, it's more like an ensemble drama in a way. But she is the one that's mostly is focused on in the beginning at least. And it's weird that her father wants to record the old guy. What he's thinking of doing, suing him or something. Maybe because he let him rent the flat out without telling him. So, yeah, I do overall like his movie. It's sort of similar to Darkwater, but I think Darkwater was more solitary. I mean, it affected mainly one family as opposed to all of them. And mainly focused on one family, a couple, and just, a mother and a daughter. So yeah, in this sense, in this case, this movie, they focus more on just these two, but it is sort of a parallel in a way still. But Dark Water didn't have many rules and such. It didn't have any authority. Right? It just had creepy things, which this also has, and mainly during the night. Uh, and it's pretty much it. The apparitions also weren't subjective in Dark Water, whereas in this arc. In Dark Water, they simply were, well, they were consistent. There's always involved a little girl, which was a little girl. As I said, it's a bit weird. I mean, the gender wasn't very clear. Well, yeah, it's a bit more than gender or anything. And, like, similar ending to Dark Water. That just makes less sense. Yeah, so, why would it happen? Well, in Dark Water, it's almost like the ocean. I mean, as you said, there was no reason. And this, of those sympathy is the reason that, stuff like this, so, it's kind of unfair, and it's only copy. Well, yeah, and then the delivery. Well, the whole thing is like, something else. Yeah, I mean, it's, makes sense, it is also similar in a way to the ring as well, which is but I know this was but not it's yeah, but such but more different in the ring and yes, so I don't quite remember I ever had many interpersonal relationships and such, but this was okay, I guess. It still doesn't, it doesn't make me think it's one of the best horror movies I've seen as such, and it's not that terrifying either. Like, I was terrified of, sort of terrified anyway, or I mean, at least it instilled. Um, I'm referring to the first Kuchiyama instilled a sense of dread. Didn't quite, I mean, just terrified. I don't know. It did in a way, and that was more violent, even though it was still subdued in comparison to, well, I mean, this was less violent. It only had a bit at the end, and specific moments when the curfew is broken, etc. So yeah, I do prefer horror movies to be, in a way, uh, they show how skilled the plot is by making it as non-violent as possible, and yet still creepy and terrifying, possibly. Because violence and gore doesn't translate into horror, really. That's another feeling. And yeah, this one did have a bit of, just a tiny bit of that, a tiny bit of violence and a tiny bit of gore. That's nothing comparison to others, like what the most one Must Call franchise or Death Bell. Those have so much more. And in a way, this also showed sociology in this sense, sort of like King's Game did. Yeah, the from what I remember as well, the anime was violent, but not the live action. So in a way, it's sort of similar to that, considering it's about. But that was more of a battle royale. This was more of a rules-oriented sort of game where it still had a bit of a personal element. The thing is, the ending came on very quickly, it seemed. I mean, I don't know, it seemed a bit. Whereas a movie like Kuchionna was more gradual, they found out more stuff about her gradually. Whereas this, most of what the female protagonist learns of the ghost happens most in the last 20 minutes. It's a bit rushed, and I mean, yeah, from the sociological aspect, I guess the tannins did go a bit stir crazy. That's sort of understandable. It's just the way they depicted it, though, the way that the movie executed, director decided on, and what to do in that aspect, it was a bit strange. Obviously, what one might think, it's a bit too far to go for just a single article, but I guess one can understand that if it's not kept secret, then people won't move in and such. From a sociological point of view, that's interesting, because I mean, similar situations might exist. In real life, obviously, it won't just be about a real curse. I mean, some buildings might be legendary cursed or such, but in real life, it could be everything from maintenance to negligent administration. People obviously do not necessarily advertise it, and then they only find out what I know happens in real life as well. People should be informed about, but I think often aren't is ground rent, where they simply don't know about it, and then it keeps going up and up, and then they cannot sell the residence. They cannot just that's very domestic in comparison to this. Obviously, it's a very domestic sort of situation, very capitalistic situation in the sense, not nothing to do with the supernatural at all. Yeah, in terms of this movie, though, it was interesting to an extent. It had interesting parts, but then just it's like a hill, and it's just somewhere over the top. So it would be interesting to see more of those of that mother who first exited, for example. We never heard from her again. And obviously, maybe it could have been interesting to see the female protagonist go on her Osaka trip, but she never did. She just mentioned it. So I don't know a bit. I'm not sure if there's a sequel for this, but there's a few. There's a there's some things that are missing. It could have been better made. I don't know. Otherwise, though, it wasn't too bad. You know, it wasn't too terrifying either. Just only mildly, mainly. But nearly as good as Dark Water, not as much though. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.